Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Ex Post Watcho, a podcast where we watch movies and we talk about them and see if they're still good or not. My name is Jason. I'm joined, as always, by my friend and co-host,
Ilana.
And this is another big week because this is when I pick a science fiction movie and make Ilana watch it. And maybe I'll be explaining it to her afterward. We'll see. No, we're going to watch Aliens. Aliens is the second movie in the Alien franchise that, as far as I'm concerned, should have stopped at 2 movies. I'm pretty excited about this one because I think you'll dig it. Ilana, have you seen Alien or Aliens?
I don't think so. I think I've seen part of one of them. I don't know which one. Is Sigourney Weaver in both of them?
Yes.
Okay, then I have no idea which one I've seen part of. I don't think I've seen a full Alien or Aliens movie because it's just not really my bag. I'm not really, like I mentioned when we did the Blade Runner episode, like I'm not really a sci-fi person generally. I shouldn't even say that. I like some sci-fi, but I'm not really into like Aliens to me seems sci-fi, but it also seems like a bit of a monster movie, which I'm not really interested in generally. So I guess like I'm not like, yeah, I can't wait to watch Aliens, but I'm really hoping that I'll enjoy it. I mean, it's much beloved, so it's got to be decent.
Yeah, so we're making an interesting move here by starting with the sequel rather than the first one. I think that actually will work out just fine. Primarily, the reason we're doing that is because we just did a Ridley Scott movie, and Ridley Scott directed the first Alien, whereas Aliens was directed by James Cameron. They're very different movies in a lot of ways. The first Alien is much more of a horror movie. It's basically like a science fiction. You got a crew on a ship, and there's one alien hunting them down over the course of the movie. It's a really good movie. Recommend watching it at some point. I don't think you really need to have seen it to go into Aliens. The thing that I think Aliens does, or is a little different, I guess. Aliens is a little bit more. It's a James Cameron movie. It's more kind of actiony. It's almost a military movie because the cast of this movie is essentially Sigourney Weaver back as Ripley and a bunch of space marines. And they find themselves in a situation where, oh shit, there's multiple aliens now. What are we going to do? But what I think actually is really great about this movie, and what I'm hoping you'll enjoy out of it, is the character of Ripley. Ripley is in the first movie. She survives. But I think in this movie, she's the main character, and she's kind of like the best character. I just like her. I like her a lot. Like she's just badass. She's smart. She's competent. And she's in a really tough situation. Everybody's just trying to figure out how the hell to get out of it. And she's kind of like the smartest person in the bunch, which makes her compelling. So I think I'm optimistic that you'll enjoy that because you're a woman and this is a woman character. No, I'm being facetious here, but actually, like, in terms of women characters, this probably is like one of the best like women characters in any kind of like action or sci-fi movie. Like there's a reason people fucking love Ripley so much and love Sigourney Weaver as the character. I think, yeah, she's definitely the star of this. And other than that, it's just a dope fucking sci-fi action movie with cool sets and visuals and sound effects, and it's just badass.
All those things sound like stuff that really excite you, but maybe just like are on my second level of like things that I care about.
That's why I'm trying desperately to reel you in with strong female protagonist.
I do like Sigourney Weaver. This is one of those movies, like, I think it is maybe Alien that I've seen some of. Is that the classic thing coming out of the guts movie?
Yeah. So the quick rundown, I guess, of the plot of Alien is you got a bunch of people on a spaceship. They are space truckers. These are like working class people working for some giant faceless space corporation. They're all in cryo sleep, and then they wake up one day and the computer says, we got a signal from this planet. We need you to go to this planet and investigate. They go to the planet. This monster lobs onto John Hurt's face, and they bring him back on the ship. And then a couple days later, the thing is not on his face anymore, and he seems to be back to normal. But then, oops, an alien bursts out of his chest. And then...
That's John Hurt?
That is John Hurt.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah, he's good in it until he dies. And then they spend the rest of the movie basically trying to not get killed by the fucking scary alien, and it becomes a horror movie.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's the one that I've seen some of. You know what? I'm going to go into this optimistic and with an open mind and just with an appreciation of Sigourney Weaver.
How about this? Let me entice you with this. Paul Reiser is in this.
Oh, okay. I did love Mad About You.
He's also kind of one of the best parts of this movie.
Okay, that does entice me. That's a bonus. Okay.
All right. I've set it up as much as I can.
Okay, let's go watch this thing.
And we're back. Ilana, I'm incredibly excited to hear what you thought of Aliens.
Okay, so I actually enjoyed this more than I expected to. You were right. This is more of like a military feeling movie rather than a sci-fi feeling movie. I feel like it was maybe a little long for my taste. I felt like, you know what I realized watching this? I just don't like action scenes. They're usually too dark and too frantic, and I can't tell what's going on. And I don't know if I'm just old, but I mean, I don't think so because I've never really enjoyed that. That's not what I enjoy. So there was some of that in this, but I loved the characters, or I hated them, but I was supposed to. Yeah, I enjoyed, for the most part, I really enjoyed watching this. I was pleasantly surprised. How was your rewatching?
It was great. It's always great because I love this movie. Yeah, Aliens, I think, might be the best, if not it's very close, put together 80s sci-fi action movie. That's a specific genre, but there's enough of them that I think that is a meaningful statement. It's like, it looks good, it sounds good, the monsters look good, the sets look good, the little miniatures and the effects and all that stuff is great. That I don't think is the best part of this movie, though. That, like, I enjoy all that, I love the aesthetic, but I think what really elevates this movie for me is the characters. And the characters as like their performances, as well as the actual characters themselves. I just like them. I like watching them. Some of them I just like as people. I think without that, this movie would definitely be pretty boring. I agree that it goes on too long. So I'm famous on this podcast for having a strict 90-minute limit on movies. And if you're going beyond that, like, you really have to be bringing something. And this movie is like 2 hours and 20 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
It might be even longer. So the interesting thing about that is there's a theatrical cut and a special edition. And that's the one we watched was the special edition. The special edition is about 20 minutes longer and adds a bunch of stuff back in. Now, the stuff it adds back in, like, a lot of it I actually think is really important to the movie. So I kind of like, I guess what I'm saying is this movie is too long, objectively speaking, but I don't think there's anything that could necessarily be taken out. Maybe. Actually, that's not true. Sorry, there's a big exception there. You kind of could remove one of two big end scenes, big action scenes at the end. Maybe that's a little bit much. But yeah, anyway.
I liked those, though. I have to say, like, there were a lot of, like, fake endings. I was like, oh, wait, it's not done. I felt that there was a lot of stuff in the middle. Like I enjoyed the first part of this movie. It actually made me want to go watch the first one, because I'm pretty sure after watching this, I think I have seen the first one, but I think it was so long ago. And I think I was really young. I wasn't really paying attention. It was sort of like a Blade Runner situation. I was kind of checked out. But I think, and I really enjoyed the ending. And usually that's where these kinds of movies lose me, is at the sort of final battle. But I enjoyed those in this movie. It was kind of in the middle. There were a couple times where they were like surveying a site, and it was so dark, and there were so many characters. I mean, until a bunch of them died, but when I'm not yet invested in the characters, it's hard for me to really care about those action sequences. So I think by the end of this movie, I really was invested in Ripley and Bill Paxton and Hicks and my friend Bishop, which I'll talk about. So I was really invested in these characters. I really did care about them. So I was really engaged with those scenes, and they didn't seem to drag on. But that, like, those first couple scenes where like they first get to the site, blah, blah, blah. I'm jumping ahead, obviously, but I was like, I could do with a little less of this. If you're just like setting it up to kill some of these characters and bond the others and, you know, make a point of how dangerous these creatures are, just do it a little faster. I'm bored. Get on with it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My favorite kind of parts of this movie are largely the first half. So this movie takes, I wrote it down, like an hour and 5 minutes or something like that before you actually see an alien. It's 55 minutes before you see like the face hugger thing. So it kind of takes a while before it gets to that point. I do really like the setup though. Like I like just kind of like, you know, you're seeing Ripley, you're seeing Paul Reiser, you're kind of getting introduced to these characters, and it's building up to something, you know, it's kind of taking you somewhere. But then, then there is a lot of just kind of maybe a bit boring stuff on the planet before it turns into like super action movie towards the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this movie opens with Ripley lost in space. Someone finds her. They send a little robot onto the ship and get her out of there. Then she's on some kind of space colony hub thing, and she meets Drake, played by Paul Reiser, who is the company man who's going to coach her through the upcoming kind of trial. I guess it's a hearing about what happened in the first movie. And she gets in a room with a bunch of suits, and they chew her out for blowing up a $42 million spaceship.
Yeah, $42 million doesn't seem like enough money for a spaceship. I mean, I guess in 1986, maybe that's what we were sitting at, but I don't know. I don't know how much a spaceship costs, but it seems low.
The budget of this movie was $18 million in 1986. So I don't know. I don't know what inflation is like in the space future, but it does sound low.
Yeah.
So we find some details out about Ripley. So this is one of the things that was actually cut from the theatrical release, which is sort of surprising, is Ripley finds out she's been, the theatrical release did have Ripley finding out she's been gone for 57 years. She's been frozen for a long time, but she finds out her daughter has died, which is a very sad moment. You look surprised. Did you not?
I didn't pick up on that.
Oh, really?
Maybe I watched a different version.
Okay, so there was a scene early on where she's sitting in front of like a screen that is like simulating nature, and then Paul Reiser walks in, and it's right before the hearing. Oh shit, you might have watched the theatrical cut. Where did you watch this movie?
On Apple TV.
Okay.
On Stars.
The this might cause problems.
On Apple TV.
Yeah, it was right before the hearing, but Paul Reiser like gives her a dossier, and it turns out she had a daughter, and it turns out her daughter died in the time she was gone in space. It's a very touching moment. So the fact that you don't remember it.
Was it like fairly long? I remember him saying you've been gone 57 years.
I mean, it was maybe like a minute long scene total. It's right before that hearing starts.
Well, fuck, that adds a whole other layer to her relationship with Newt.
I know, right? Like, that's the thing that blows my mind. I read that was a thing that was cut, and I'm like, that kind of like, I don't know if it changes the thing, but like, when you have that piece of context, it like makes their relationship and everything that's happening like very clear, I guess.
I know I looked down to make a note saying, wait, what was everything like 57 years ago? What is the world we are living in today? Like, I wanted to see the first one. I should have watched the first one before I watched this.
That would have been earlier enough that I'm pretty sure you just saw a different version. Okay, let me ask you another question. Was there a scene where they set up some guns that fire 1 million bullets at the aliens? It goes on a long time.
Where they set them up?
Yeah, they put some like turret guns. They're like robot guns. And then the aliens run down a hallway and the guns like shoot them and then run out of ammo. Okay.
I don't think I saw that.
You watched the theatrical cut. Interesting. So you got the shorter version. The version I watched is 20 minutes
like
longer.
Oh my God, the one I watched was still like 2 hours and 17 minutes or something.
Wow, okay. Well, anyway, so Ripley had a daughter and she died because Ripley was gone, and she says, I promised her I'd be back for her birthday. And that's like right before she then goes into that room where a bunch of dudes in suits yell at her for blowing up the spaceship.
Oh my God, that adds so much more to this story. Why would they ever cut that out?
According to James Cameron, the scenes were deleted from the original release because 20th Century Fox thought the film was showing too much nothing and spent an unnecessary amount of time building up suspense.
No, how dare they? The stupid studios. Anyway, wow. Okay, yeah, that adds a lot.
I will back them up on one thing. So the extended cut does have like these scenes where the aliens are trying to get in and these sentry guns like fight them off. I think you're okay without that. It was just, that's kind of where the movie is maybe getting a little bit grindy in terms of its action. But yeah, that other detail is unforgivable.
Wow. Okay.
What did you think of the suits everybody was wearing in that meeting room? Did you notice those, the style?
I noticed those suit the woman was wearing, the woman who was smoking, and she had a very blunt sort of haircut, and it was a very like 80s power suit. And I was like, she was a real bitch. So, but I was like, yeah, I love it.
I like the guy suits because they're all like kind of like good fitting guy suits, and the collar, it's kind of like they have a regular suit collar, but they're all just like flipped up perfectly straight and kind of like go around like that. Like Paul Reiser had that going on.
I did notice his, yeah.
I like when sci-fi kind of plays with fashion a little bit, and you can tell they're kind of like ripping from what's going on them around the time, like Rachel with her like power suit in Blade Runner. I don't know if like maybe collars were a thing in the mid to late 80s. Yeah, I dig this scene a lot because like nobody is taking her seriously. She's like, this is what happened. An alien came on our ship and like fucked everything up, and like it helps if you've seen the first movie because you know like just how bad that situation was. Right. And it's kind of funny too that like that's not a detail I also like about this movie is the corporation. The first movie touches on it a little bit, but like their job is to go haul cargo for this corporation, and the corporation says, we got a signal somewhere, you need to go check it out, and that's what leads to everything going wrong. And throughout the whole process, like they get communications from the company that's like preserve the specimen at all costs, and they tell the robot that, and that's why he like tries to kill them or whatever. And then in this movie, so the movie ends with like, Ripley survives. She's the sole survivor. And you're like, yay. And then, 7 years later, we find out like what happens next. And basically it begins with her like just getting grilled by this fucking company that's like, this is an asset. It cost a lot of money. It happened 57 years ago. Like that's the part that makes it almost so absurd is like they would have written that off a long time ago, but they're still going to give her shit for it and like basically bust her down to like the lowest of the working class rungs working in like cargo.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then I love her just like screaming at them when they're like not taking her seriously. Like that's kind of like, that is the essence of Ripley's character is like just telling people, no, you assholes, listen to me. We're actually in trouble here. Yeah.
She's great. She's such a great character because she's super assertive and strong and smart, and she's kick-ass, but she's also incredibly sensitive and compassionate. Like she's a full human. I think a lot of the time we see women in those sort of quote strong female roles,
strong female protagonist.
Yeah, they are one thing or they're another thing. They're not this complicated human being like most women. I would argue all women are. So I really did appreciate that. And even there were moments where I was like, oh, are they hinting at something between her and Hicks? There was some flirting, but it didn't go anywhere. And I liked that because there was no love story to like mess this all up or turn it into something it isn't. I really, really, really appreciated that. And obviously Sigourney Weaver is amazing as Ripley, and we all love her, I think.
Yeah, I guess it was a fight to get her in the second movie. Like, she was signed on to do it, but she wanted like a proper fucking salary for it, and the studio was like, no, just we'll get someone else. And then James Cameron was like, no, we need Sigourney Weaver back, and she got the money and got the role again. Yeah, she's great. I love her. Because she's like, she's Benny the Jet. She's a hero, you know, like she really is. Yeah. She just acts heroically throughout this movie in just many different ways. So like when they find Newt initially, she runs into the garbage chute and everyone's like, what do we, you know, kind of what do we do? And she just fucking dives in immediately. Like she's just going to go get the kid. When they go on that first mission, it goes bad. She basically like pushes the military guy out and like takes over. And then like grilling Hudson when he's melting down, she gives him a pep talk. Again, I don't know if you got that scene. And
I
then
did get that scene.
Okay, and then she goes back and like rescues Newt at the end. You know, goes on this like badass action movie scene. So she's great. But then also like the other two big things in this movie, I think, are her relationship with Newt, and it's like clearly a surrogate mother thing when you have that context from the beginning. Like she lost her parents, she lost her kid. Now they're in the situation, and it just seems like a right place, right time thing. So it's just kind of like nice and touching to sort of see that relationship develop throughout the film. And her and Hicks, I think that's a fucking romance story. Like they don't.
Do you?
I do. Like they don't consummate it at the end. Like there's no passionate kiss or anything like that. But like by the end of that movie, they're like flirting hard. Like. Okay, did you get the scene? Did you have a scene where he shows her the gun? It's like towards the end of the movie. Okay.
Well, in my version, it was like midway through the movie.
Okay, so there's a scene where like, you know, their backs are really against the wall. They're not sure they're going to get out. And she's kind of like rattled. She's like, I don't know. I don't know about this. And she's the one who's been sort of like the, not stoic, but, you know, like the in charge person the whole time. And Hicks is like, he just starts explaining his gun to her, and he's like, it's this gun, and he's like, feel how heavy it is. And like then he's like showing her how to shoot it, and like they are clearly
they
into
flirt,
each other at that point.
But it's not like it's not like that's not the central theme. That's not what she's doing. That's not what's motivating any of her actions, though.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah.
So that's what I like. Like she's still look. As one of my notes says, Hicks is hot. Hicks is a man. He's just like a great leader. He steps it up. He has the respect of everybody when I don't know what kind of dumbass was put in charge. And I don't know if there was an explanation in the extended whatever version you watched. But in the version I watched, I wasn't clear why such an idiot, what's his name?
Gorman.
Why is he in charge? Is he someone's kid?
So I think it's not explicitly explained in the movie, but I think if you've seen enough military movies or shows or have talked to people in the military, there's a distinction between officers and like soldiers. There's commissioned and non-commissioned. So a kind of common theme is that you have like the grunts that, you know, they're the ones who go out there and do the fighting. And then you have the officer in charge of them who a lot of the time, like they go to officer school and they have different backgrounds. A lot of the times they're more educated. So it's almost like a managerial position sometimes. And we learn as they're, you know, getting ready to drop, they're like, how many times have you dropped? And he says like 38, but they were all simulated. This is my second mission, you know? And I think maybe that speaks to the kind of overall theme of the movie, or at least it connects to the scenes we saw earlier with the company. Like we got this mission, this lady thinks she saw something, go you guys go down and look at it. Like they're not taking it seriously enough. So they just kind of send this guy, you know, I can easily kind of picture a backstory in my head of like why this particular not so impressive military dude got this gig, you know? And that's another thing I really like about the story is that guy kind of sucks. I think they communicate it really well. One of the details I like is when they first are in the complex, kind of like scoping things out. They're walking through a room. It's really tense. And he just like fucking knocks over a water bottle and then like makes like a oops face. Like, sorry guys, awkward. Yeah. And then, you know, things kind of fall apart and Ripley ends up kind of taking over in the mission. And then like Ripley is the one who promotes Hicks to being in charge. Like she literally says like, I think Hicks is in charge. He's like, yeah, I think I am. So yeah, it's not explicitly stated, but like that is kind of a theme, I guess, that comes up in military stories as well as I think real life too.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that now that you're sort of breaking it down, that's very true.
Have you ever seen the show Band of Brothers? That was the World War II series Tom Hanks produced. Oh
yeah, I did see quite a bit of that.
Okay, so the first episode has David Schwimmer playing an officer who is like going to be leading the company into war. So he's like their drill sergeant, and then they're going to go out on missions together. And the whole thing about him is that he's like not very good at the actual military part. Like when they go out and do exercises where they simulate being in combat, he just like fucks everything up. But he's like really a very like proud guy, and he sort of disciplines the soldiers and stuff like that. So like that actually feels very, you know, we don't learn as much about Gorman, but you can kind of take a story like that and be like, oh, okay, well, this is that same kind of guy in this situation, except it's in space.
He wasn't too bad though. Like a lot of times those roles are like someone who's super pompous, and he actually did seem to be humbled pretty quickly, actually, once Ripley started taking charge. He was
after he gets bonked in the back of the head and knocked out, which is hilarious. Like the movie where aliens are eating people, he just like boop, a coconut lands on his head and he's out for an hour.
You know what though? He's redeemed in the end by his final actions.
That's true. Yeah, when him and
steps it up,
Vasquez blow themselves up. That's a good that's a good movie death
moment. Yeah, that was a really good moment. I really started out not liking Vasquez. That character was just like a caricature. It was like, oh, here's like, you know, the tough chick, and you know, here's the tomboy kind of character. It just went so beyond. At first, I was really irritated by that, but I ended up liking her a lot by the end. By her end.
She's interesting. Like, so of the soldiers, kind of the most prominent ones I would say are like Hicks, and then her and Hudson, who's Bill Paxton's character. Yeah. And I think they're kind of a funny contrast because like, yeah, early in the movie, she is playing this like just stereotype military bro, basically. She has this weird relationship with one of the other characters, the other guy who's got the big gun. Like, again, I don't know how much of this got cut out of your version, but like there's some like almost sexual thing going on there.
Yes. Yeah. That was not cut out of my version. I saw that.
So what they remind me of is there was a gym I used to go to, and there was this couple that showed up once, and it was this really huge guy and like a smaller but like fit woman. And he was doing bicep curls, and as he was doing them, she was standing like right in his face, facing him, being like, yeah, fucking lift that shit. Like, and that was their relationship. And this is kind of the vibe I got from that. And then he dies. That was real sad.
Oh my God. Oh, gross. I'm very upset by your gym story. It wasn't really that sad when he died. It was kind of because he died in that whole kind of wacky moment when they first go into the complex or whatever. It was really hard to tell what was going on. I really liked Cigar Boss. I like when they woke up and he just like popped up, and the first thing he does is pop a cigar in his mouth. He seemed like a good guy, and I was like, oh, this guy's in charge. He's like, you know, everyone's daddy. He's doing it. And then he died there. And
Yeah, like most of the soldiers get killed off in that scene.
Yeah, there were not a lot of people made it out, which was fine. They needed to trim the fat, but I wasn't terribly heartbroken by any of it. I wanted to see Cigar Boss longer, but we weren't connected with them yet, really.
Yeah, I guess maybe why I feel sad in that scene is because like by the end of the movie, Vasquez feels like less of a kind of cartoon character and feels a bit more real, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe just because you've been around her that long. So earlier on, when that guy dies and she's like very actually sad about it, I feel sad. Bill Paxton is terrific as Hudson. I love him so much. I love how that's the contrast between him and Vasquez is like when the movie opens, kind of all the Marines are like just flexing their muscles and they're like, we're the baddest, toughest motherfuckers and blah, blah, blah. And as the movie goes on, we find out that like Vasquez actually is, or, you know, like she's a competent soldier. She can back up all of her shit talk. Whereas Hudson is just like melting down.
Yeah, I really hated him at first. Those first couple of scenes that we saw them, I was like, these sexist fucks. Like, I hope Ripley kills them all. I hope they all get aliened. But then, yeah, I felt really bad for Bill Paxton's character, Hudson. I felt really bad. That would be me in that situation. Like, he was just like, what the fuck is going on? Because they were so fucked. There were so many situations. He was totally justified in his panic. I mean, maybe not the greatest way to approach it as a soldier. That's when, you know, Hicks stepped in and Ripley stepped in and they took charge of things. But I really started to understand Hudson a lot more as the movie went on. I felt like that would probably be my reaction in those situations. He's so funny. He's so annoying, like the way he talks and him chewing his gum. Like, where did he bring gum with him? Has he got a pocket full of gum on this ship? Like, what?
Yeah, I think we all want to feel like we're a Hicks sometimes, but deep down we know we're a Hudson.
Mm-hmm.
So and Hicks, I think, is like the sort of like main character of the Marines, the best guy. I like him because like everyone else in that crew is basically just like aggro, you know, tough guy, macho stuff. But he's just quiet. You know, he just he speaks when it makes sense for him to say something. There's an interaction earlier on that I really like, which is when they're on the ship and Ripley's like, I should do something, like I'm not being useful here. And they're like, well, I can operate the cargo bot. So she goes and move the boxes and they're both just like, him and Apone, the cigar guy, are both like laughing and are like impressed. Like they're like, hey, she's solid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a nice moment. I agree.
I'm just going to keep going through the characters because I think that's the best way to approach this. So I want to talk a little bit about Burke and Paul Reiser. So one of my things to try to entice you about this movie was Paul Reiser.
Yeah.
And I really do think Paul Reiser is like a really key part of this movie and one of the best performances, one of the best characters.
He does a great job. I love Paul Reiser, and when he showed up with that cat. By the way, did you love the cat? Is that
of course I love the cat.
You love this movie?
One of my notes is that the cat is a good cat actor because like when Ripley's in the hospital, like kind of holding the cat and petting him and stuff like that, that cat is being very chill.
Yeah.
Because if you think about filming that scene, you know, they probably had to do a bunch of takes and you got to get the cat in there every time. And
when she wakes up from her nightmare, the cat just, I mean, they probably drugged the poor thing. Who knows?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Maybe they gave it some like Quaaludes or something. Chill it out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Paul Reiser does a great job in this. I think I hated seeing him like this because I just like seeing him in love with Helen Hunt on Mad About You. Paul Reiser is great. I mean, good casting. Like he's such a kind of good guy, clean cut guy, in terms of like his look. Yeah. Oh man, I hated him by the end of this. I hated him so much.
Yeah, he really is a good mix of a certain kind of like, trying to think of the right word to use here. I don't want to say charming. He's not charming at all, but he's like a pleasant, inoffensive.
Yeah, non-threatening.
Non-threatening. Yeah, non-threatening.
Yeah.
Kind of disposition. But he turns out to be like the most vicious person out of that entire crew with what he's willing to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like psychopathic, his personality. And I think that's what, like, Paul Reiser does it really well. Like, he does kind of, he just comes across the whole time as like, you just don't trust him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
yeah, he plays this well because he gives you enough that you have kind of uneasy feelings about him right from the jump, but you're not really sure why. Like, there's no reason why. Like, you can't pinpoint any moment or anything that he has said or done, but you're a little uneasy.
So I can pinpoint a few moments that come from having seen this a bunch of times where you sort of kind of get a glimpse that, like, this guy's kind of a dick. This wouldn't have been in your version of the movie, but in the scene before they go into the hearing, Ripley is like immediately like, hey, did you get that news about my daughter? And he's like, we'll get to that later. We got to do the hearing. Like, he's just really kind of like brushing that aside until she like makes him tell him what's up. And then when they try and recruit Ripley, they go to her apartment and they're kind of talking. And he says something like, I hear you work on the cargo docks. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, he's very clearly like talking down to her sort of position in this space society that she finds herself in. So like, those are moments where you're like, oh, this guy's like kind of an asshole.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, she gave them both coffees when they showed up at her apartment, and Burke. He got up and helped himself to some milk or cream or something. And sat down again. And I thought that was a strange move, but
there's also another detail in that apartment scene where like he's sitting there like playing with some kind of towel that's on a table, and then like Ripley walks over and just like takes the towel and throws it away. Like, it's a very minor detail, but it actually kind of like communicates something that's happening there, which is like this guy showed up and he's like fucking with her stuff.
Yeah, there are really interesting power dynamics in this, which I think is just heightened by Ripley being, you know, a woman rather than a man, which we would usually see in these kinds of movies. I think that all these characters and those sort of strange dynamics are, what make this amazing. I'm going to say amazing.
Something that's different from the first movie is that the company was like kind of faceless. Like, you actually see the company's orders like printed out on this like Apple II looking computer screen because it was made in 1979, and it's just like your orders are to bring the shit back. Whereas in this movie, the company has a face. Like, and the face is Paul Reiser. Yeah, that's great. So he is just like, he's such a company man, and there's also moments like he's just always fucking talking about like, well, we can't blow up the planet because we invested a lot of money here. Like, his job is to represent the company's interests, which are just like, don't destroy our assets and how can we make money? So he's kind of like, he's doing that as the embodiment of the company, but also as a company man, in the sense that like, you know, this guy wants to get promoted and work his way up, you know, like he wants to be a VP of something. And there's also like a funny line when they land on the planet and they're like looking around, and I think they like, someone points out the power generator thing, and he says like, we manufacture those. And he says it like kind of excitedly, just like this dork with his fucking job. Yeah.
He was weird. Like, okay, I don't understand though what his... Okay, at the beginning, or not at the beginning, sort of midway through this, shit's starting to really go down. They're in the Batmobile. Ripley's just zooming all over the place. And he's just so chill. That was like the first time I was like, this is going to be bad. Not just like, what's going on with this guy?
Are you saying before they got into any kind of action?
No, this was like after pretty much everyone else died.
Oh, okay.
And then Ripley went in with the like Batmobile situation to sort of save everybody that was still stuck in that. And Paul Reiser was just like chilling.
Maybe he is a psychopath, and that part of his brain that where you're supposed to feel fear and emotion just actually didn't light up for him.
Well, like when they're later on, when they're all running away from the aliens, and he's quarantining himself in a room and like locking them all out. He's not like even panicked. He's just like, he's got like slight anxiety, maybe.
Psychopath.
And also, like, what's his plan? If everyone else who's trained to fight and kill, if all of them die, what is like little pencil pusher gonna do by himself on this planet?
Okay, I think I can actually explain that. So at that point in the movie, Bishop is trying to rearrange the satellite so the ship will land. So theoretically, if he was the only one who survived, him and Bishop could get on the plane and Bishop would fly them up.
Bishop would take orders.
Yeah.
I forgot Bishop was fixing the machine at that point.
I want to bring up something just from the scene between him and Ripley, where Ripley basically calls him out for like, you were the one who sent the colonists to go look for the thing. Like you created this whole situation. And okay, it is the year 2020 and comparing people to Donald Trump is the most hack thing you can possibly do. But Paul Reiser literally sounds like the way he talks like Donald Trump in the scene. Yes. And it's the funniest fucking thing. Because he's like, what does he say? She says like, you did this and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, it was wrong. It was a bad call, Ripley. It was a bad call.
I thought the exact same thing. I was thinking that he said something earlier in he called a group of men something hombres as well. And
bad hombres.
Has Donald Trump watched Aliens too many times? Is he heavily influenced by Burke from Aliens? It's so funny you brought that up. I noticed that as well.
I mean, I looked it up. Paul Reiser is from New York City. So, you know, like he's got the accent, and maybe bad hombres is just New York slang.
Maybe.
So we've also got Newt, who is a screaming child. That kid can fucking scream. What's interesting, the actress who played her is named Carrie Henn. This was the only role she ever played. She did not pursue acting at all after this.
Interesting. Mom and dad forced her into it?
Who knows? Well, I mean, if she didn't continue afterward, there's a good chance mom and dad might not have been happy about that, because this movie made $1 billion. Like, there probably was a career there if she wanted it, because I think she did a really good job in this movie as the fucking horribly traumatized kid.
Yeah, I started off really not liking her because I don't really care for a precocious little child in a movie. Sometimes I think it's just a little played out. It's a little boring. But she grew on me at the end. Fuck, when she was in the water and the alien was behind her, I was losing my mind. I was like,
iconic shot right there. Oh
God. I was so stressed out. So I really did. I was really on her side by the end of this movie. But yeah, I think she did a good job. The relationship between her and Ripley is obviously the heart of the story. It was very moving, and there was enough of it that I really cared about what happened to both of them. But there wasn't so much, like, it didn't feel too heavy-handed in that way, which I think this is a really well-balanced movie in that sense.
Something that I think is kind of interesting is, like, between Ripley and Newt, there's the you know, lost her parents, lost her child thing. But another interesting detail is when they're first interacting in the garbage chute, they have a shared experience of, like, they have both literally seen what these aliens are and what they can do, that no one outside of that room does, you know? Right. Now, I don't know if Newt necessarily knows that. I don't think Ripley says, like, oh, I've been through this before. But I just think that makes their interaction kind of interesting in terms of, like, the perspective that they are both they do have a shared perspective, even if Newt doesn't necessarily understand that.
That's a good point.
So she's good. She screams a lot. I don't know what the count is, but, like, there's at least, like, 4 or 5 scenes where she's just going full blast. Solid scream. Bishop, you were a fan of Bishop.
I love Bishop so much. The moment he appeared, I was like, I like this guy. I think it is because he's very 80s dad. I think this was from an episode that actually we didn't air. It was one of our very early test episodes when I talked about 80s dads and feeling very comforted by them. Roy Schneider styles, like from Jaws, or Donnelly Rhodes styles from Danger Bay. He has the same vibes. He has a very calming presence and voice. He has extremely expressive eyes. He's also in Dog Day Afternoon, which is one of my favorites. So maybe that's why he feels really familiar and comforting. At the beginning, I was like, oh, fuck, I need this guy not to be evil, because I really He would have been a great bad guy. I think like he does have this, he plays that kind of android-y sort of thing well, where there's something just a little bit off, but it's very human. So I was really worried, but I mean, I was devastated at the end for him, but I don't know. I loved this character a lot.
When he gets ripped in half, it's so shocking and tragic. Like,
oh my God.
What did you call it? His milk torso?
Milk bath. His milk bath tube disembowelment. I was like, no. And then later his fucking body's getting just like suctioned, you know, towards the thing. But then he fucking saves Newt. He broke my heart. I just loved him so much. I can't say enough about Bishop. I love Bishop. Bishop saved the day as well.
Good guy, Bishop.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, at any point in this movie, were you ever suspicious of Bishop?
No. Only at the very, very first scene when I was confused about why he was rubbing milky substance between his fingers in the cafeteria. I figured obviously something, I obviously later realized that's almost like their blood. When there was a very close-up shot of him explaining to Ripley, like, oh, that wouldn't happen now. We're not programmed to do that. We could never.
Program the murder out of ourselves.
Exactly. He was like, that's an old model. And because I think Burke was kind of backing him up and supporting that, I was like, oh no. Oh, is this guy gonna try some shit? But I also thought that would be lazy storytelling if the like android was another problem. So that was the only time when I really was suspicious. After that, I was like, no, I think because he also kind of pieces out for like a really long time. And then at one point he comes back in and they're all like really stressed and strategizing. And he's just like, hey guys, I'm just gonna like keep going forward with all the shit I've already been doing. Okay, bye. And like he just leaves for a while again. It was really odd. So I was like, I think he's just taking care of business, you know, tightening bolts and computing things, or I don't know. I had no reason not to trust him. Were you suspicious of him when you first watched this?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't remember. The first time I saw this was like so long ago. I think so. The reason I bring that up is I think at the time this movie came out, Bishop probably when the movie plays out and you see it's an android character, I think there's supposed to be a lot of tension there or questioning as to whether Bishop is good or not, and then he ultimately does prove himself to be good, which is interesting because now when I watch the movie the whole time I'm just like, it's good guy Bishop. Like he's friendly and he's helpful and like he's just got this like nice disposition.
He's sweet.
But coming from the first movie, the one crew member turning out to be an android and like attacking them, it was a very like, that was a surprise, and it was kind of like, you want to talk about like milk blood, like and the beads and like the spaghetti string kind of like fake robot insides, which is a very cool touch. I like the way they made robot insides this like fucking weird organic thing. So Ripley is basically like robot racist towards him when she first meets him, and kind of throughout the movie, like she's always very standoffish, like, okay, Bishop, you do that, you know, you stay in your corner, I'll stay in mine, and we won't have any problems. But then, you know, when she's like running away from the Queen at the very end and she gets up the elevator and like the ship is gone, Bishop fucked us. But then he shows up, yay, Bishop was just doing laps, just keeping the engine running.
I never doubted him. I was like, something's wrong. Something's wrong. He'll be back. I never doubted Bishop for a moment. His eyes are too honest.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the bulk of the characters. Let me just talk through the plot a little bit here and see if there's any big scenes we just wanted to cover. So they go to the planet, they search the building and find Newt. They go on that mission in the darkness to like find all the colonists, and that goes really bad, and they bust out of there in the Batmobile.
I have a question about this. Okay, so did they know Ripley's story? Because if they do, why aren't they connecting the fucking dots when they go in there? this is the most ragtag group of fucking rugrats I've ever seen. Like, they're supposed to be military, like army. Like, I'm assuming they're supposed to be the, creme de la creme, the absolute,
the ultimate badass.
Yeah. It seems like they have not been briefed until they're already in fucking space, like off planet Earth, and they're all like, what's going on? What are we doing here? Like, nobody talked about this before they left Earth. They're so fucking whiny also. Like, are they just also, like, they're just, is that, they're just soldiers. They're just, look at these goofs. Haha. Is it like, what? That part of the movie kind of lost me a bit, because I was like, they seem too stupid and too scattered and too casual about this. I know everyone kind of likes a rogue, soldier, military man, but I was like, we could have just done with Bill Paxton and then everyone else be a little more focused and a little more observant of like, Ripley was talking about aliens. This looks like some alien shit. But nobody seemed to really pick up on that until like everything was on fire.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I think a certain amount of the sort of like dismissive cavalier attitude of the military is part of the movie, I guess, and sort of part of the theme of like Ripley knows how serious the situation is. She's been telling everybody and no one's fucking listening until things get bad enough that like, okay, we believe you now. We've seen it. So I think like the way the soldiers are kind of first presented, and they're like, they have that meeting where like Ripley kind of gives them a debrief that's like, yeah, it's a little awkward because she has to basically tell them like, well, I was on a spaceship and an alien, did this and that. And like when you say it out loud, it sounds crazy. So yeah, they're kind of not having it. But then when they do get into that, when they're in the complex and wherever they are, and you see all the like alien goo, the secreted resin, kind of
so much goo in the 80s. Again, more goo.
This might have the most goo. There's a lot of goo in this. But yeah, they're just like, oh, what is this? Weird, and they're kind of like, it doesn't seem like it's they thought things through very well.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of get the whole military thing. You're going through traumatic experiences or really intense experiences together. You're bonding, your little family. You have to have a sense of humor to get through certain things. We see these themes in military movies, I get that, but it just seemed a bit extreme in this. And they all seemed like they were so like annoyed to have to be there. Like, I don't know.
Well, so that scene where Ripley is explaining things to them and they're all kind of standing there, they are really dismissive of it. And they're like, oh, it's another bug hunt. So it kind of like implies a certain amount of like, I don't think situations like this are really typical. Like they probably aren't really kind of, it sounds like they're kind of bored and they're like, oh God, okay, we got sent on this thing and now we got to go fly in space and go to this fucking planet and blah, blah, blah. So I think like maybe a certain amount of apathy could be warranted based on like what their typical experiences are being in this Marine Corps. I don't know. We don't know really anything like how this Marine Corps works and what is the typical day on the job. But I got the impression that they were just, that it's a boring job and they think this is going to be another one of those boring missions where you have to go check something out and nothing happens. And then they realize...
Like, and now we got to listen to a woman. We got to take orders from a lady.
And now this lady's going to lecture us.
Yeah.
So I think that's something interesting to talk about, which is Ripley... one of the themes of this movie, as people describe it, is like it's a woman kind of not being listened to the whole time, And I think it's interesting to think about, though, like, especially because, so I don't know if you know this detail about the first Alien movie, but when the script was written, all of the characters were sort of interchangeable sex-wise, gender-wise. Like, basically anybody can be anybody. So Ripley was more than likely going to be a man, but then Sigourney Weaver got the part and ended up being that character. Now, by the time this movie happens, Ripley already exists as a character and is a woman. So like, it's not an accident that this script was written for this woman character. But I think it is kind of interesting because I when I watch this movie and I think about that theme, I'm like, well, how much of this would be different if Ripley were a male character? How much would play out the same and how much would be different?
Yeah, that's a good
So, for example, the scene where she's basically early on getting grilled by the faceless corporation, the suits, I kind of think would have been the same, you know? Like, they're concerned about the bottom line. Why did you blow our shit up, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of that would have played out similarly.
The reason I say this is because when, like, this does come up as a theme a lot for, you know, what this movie is about. And I guess objectively speaking, it is showing, like, a woman character not being listened to for a big chunk of the movie. And, like, it's very clear about that. But I think the fact that I think it's almost incidental to just who the character is. And in a way, I don't know, something about that I think is interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I actually really agree with you on that. I think that we perceive that character differently because she is a woman as an audience member. And that is a problem of this woman isn't being listened to. But if it were a man, I don't think that would be picked up on as much, maybe. Or maybe it would have been picked up on even more because it would be like, why isn't anyone listening to this man? But I think that's what makes Ripley such a strong, interesting, complicated character is it wasn't written as, well, yes, like you said, obviously this second one was written as she is a woman, but it's not, the movie is clearly not saying she's a woman and this is what she's going through. It's like, this is what she's going through and also she's a woman, which makes her more interesting.
Yeah, there's a bad version of this where they really kind of lean into, like, what is this broad telling us, you know?
Yeah. It's I think that commentary like that is important in art and in film. But I think that it's just as powerful, obviously, from these movies and from people's reactions to them, to just write a woman like a human being in a position of power or in a position where she's kicking ass, and not having it be like, whoa, it's a woman and she's doing cool stuff. It's just like cool shit's happening and it happens to be done by a woman. That's so much more powerful somehow. I think that's interesting. Yeah.
So the last hour of this movie is when it becomes total action movie, kind of broken down into three parts. The first chunk, everyone is in the complex and the aliens break in and they all try and cheese it out of there, and almost everybody dies. Paul Reiser gets captured by an alien, and Vasquez and Gorman blow themselves up, and only Ripley and Hicks get out of there, and Newt gets kidnapped by the aliens. That
was such a stressful scene.
So you could have ended the movie at this point, if you wanted to, by just having them get to the plane and get out of there. Like, yeah. So when I say that, like, there's three big action scenes at the end, and you know, could almost, it's debatable. I mean, I like them, but an alternative would have been not to do any of that stuff and just have them escape at this point.
Sorry, is this also when Hudson dies?
Yeah.
Okay, I fucking love that. Okay, first of all, I have 2 points to make about this situation. I have 3 points to make. One, I hated that tracker radar thing. It sounded like a busted stereo. And at first, I thought something was wrong with my computer speakers because I was watching this on my computer. That was a very irritating noise. Good job to their sound team. They could probably not have anticipated that is what a modern busted computer.
So you're saying
stereo.
It was the combination of the sound effect and your specific listening device that made it particularly irritating?
No, it was just the sound.
Oh.
It made it sound like something was wrong with my speakers. That's what I was worried something was. I hated the noise. That's my first point. My second point is I fucking loved Bill Paxton freaking out before he died. Like, I liked that he is kind of a voice of reason. He's like, how did they cut the power? They're animals. Like, how is this even happening? Like, he's the one who's going like, guys, this is fucked. Like, I just liked when he was dying, he was just like, fuck you.
Oh, you want some?
I really appreciated how he went out. He just went out like full on. I really, really liked that. We kind of missed over the scene when the aliens are the little face sucker things. That was a really intense scene. There was a lot of great builds of tension and action, like super well balanced again. I fucking hate those things. They are so spider-like. Have you ever seen those videos of those like camel spiders or whatever they're called?
Yeah.
Ugh. That's what they remind me of. I'm actually have like goosebumps all over me right now just thinking about it. Really good job with this team. I mean, I know they're from the first one too, but like creating something that so many people have a fear of, like taking that sort of arachnid type of thing and creating these alien species based on that. And then later, you know, the grown aliens and their teeth. And that's a thing that a lot of people don't like, just really large exposed teeth.
They've always got like an additional
reason.
jaw just popping out whenever they need it.
Yeah.
It's convenient.
But fuck, those little spider face sucker things. Oh, those are awful.
Yeah, those things are pretty gross because they look like a mix between like a spider and like a hand. Like they have almost a human kind of like fingery texture to them. Mm-hmm. And then like the way they operate is like horrifyingly disgusting. Like when you see the one go up to the glass and you can see the little fucking thing it sticks down your throat.
It looks very much like almost like labia or something, and then it just like pops out with a little thing.
Yeah, so
sucker thing.
That stuff all comes from the first movie, and the alien design, and I think the facehugger too, was from a Swiss dude named H.R. Giger. He is a Swiss like artist, and he used to make a lot of like paintings and sculptures and stuff like that. And they hired him to do the stuff for this movie. So he's got like a weird style that's sort of like biomechanical. There's a drawing that predates the Alien franchise that kind of is the first iteration of that monster design. And yeah, they sort of look like weirdly organic, but like, and bug-like, but also like a little bit robotic and the way the like set is. Now this movie, he was not involved in the second one. So I think there is a little bit more like James Cameron design team coming up with stuff. Like the Queen Alien is totally new for this movie. But the overall design is, and the facehuggers come from him. Yeah, and that scene where they're in the room like hiding from the thing or like trying to like not get killed by it is like very tense. Like, because the stakes are just like horrifying if things don't go well. Yeah. So it's a very stressful scene. And again, we see good ingenuity from Ripley's part by like setting off the fire alarm.
Yes. And her boyfriend Hicks coming to the rescue.
He's like, I'll just roll through this window.
But that's, I think, like, what I also like about the dynamics in this. Like, Ripley's very rarely, she's vulnerable, but she's very rarely in a situation where, like, someone has to come and save her. But there still are those moments, and no one's, like, lording that over anyone else. Like, I really, again, I'm just really, I watched this only this afternoon, and so I don't think I gave myself enough time to really like let this stew and think about it. But the more we're talking about it, the more I like this movie and where they went with things. That's
my goal with these episodes, is to like just try and convince you of all the details that I think make the movie really good. But that is like another part of Ripley, the character, and Hicks and their relationship is like, it really is. She is shown throughout the movie to be like extremely competent and you know, the smartest person in the room. He says it explicitly at some point where she's like, when they're kind of like doing the gun dance together, and he's like got her arms around her, and she's like, oh, I can handle myself, and he's like, yeah, clearly you can. And she, in this situation, she I guess needs rescuing, but I mean, it's not because like she didn't just stumble into some kind of mishap, you know, like there's a very she got fucked over by someone. Like someone literally set her up and trapped her in this room, and she has no way out, but she finds a way to like, you know, get attention, and then Hicks shows up and saves the day. But towards the end of the movie, like she's saving Hicks. Like when they shoot that alien and all the stuff is on his chest, and she's like ripping the thing off, you know, and basically gets him onto the plane at the end. So it's I feel like their relationship throughout the whole movie is like mostly based on just respect for each other's competence and abilities, which is, even though it kind of like, I do think it is borderline romance towards the end.
For sure.
The reason, like one of the really nice things about it is like the thing that kind of forges the bond between them is just that like they're both good at what they do and they both can recognize that in each other, and like respect each other for it. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree.
So yeah, Newt gets kidnapped. Oh shit, we thought we were getting out of this. So now Ripley's like, God damn it, I'm going to go save her. And she arms up and goes into the belly of the beast.
Hold on. Sorry. I want to go back again.
Okay.
This is when they're all still alive. When the aliens are coming at the door and they're welding the door together. I just have to ask, how the fuck this group of super intelligent, super trained people, there's only 3 possible ways the aliens could be coming at them. That is on the ground level, underground, or above them. And they're like, oh, maybe it's like an underground tunnel. And they're like, they should be in the room. And it takes them so long. Collectively, I understand they're panicked at this point, but it takes them so long to just like look up and recognize like, oh, they're probably above us. If they're not on our level or below us, they must be above us. That's the only possibility if science and this technology is working accurately as it has shown to do up until this point. That really bothered me as well.
I think you have a good case to make there. I think you're right, because well, they do say that whatever it is, it's not in the plans. So there is like they didn't quite realize that. I guess you could pop open the ceiling tile. It's almost like a high school like ceiling tile that you just.
But it's like grated. Like you can see through it though.
Yeah, I mean, well, they weren't directly above them yet.
Puts a little flashlight through it. But nobody thought like, oh, they're not here. They're not below us. Literally, nobody thought.
What other direction could there be?
Yeah, there's only 3 possibilities.
Well, especially because in the first movie, they do make a similar discovery at one point where they're like, the alien, where's the alien? It's near us. And they're like, oh, fuck, it's in the vents. So the vents are kind of a thing in that first movie, the vents of the ship. So Ripley should have been on that. So docking her 1 point in that scene from her.
Speaking of the vents, when the alien was coming at Vasquez, when she was in the vent, that was a horrifying shot. I really it was great. But I was like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Awful.
I do like the shot where they pop open the ceiling tile and like Hicks like peeks his head up and like looks inside, and then you see like just a bunch of them walking like on the ceiling like upside down toward them. That's like, oh Jesus Christ, because you're just like, oh man, they are fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I will allow you to move on now.
Okay, so we're gonna go save Newt. So we get the scene where she goes into the thing. There's a countdown. Everything's going to blow up. Now, you said, I was thinking this when I watched it, that I should time it and see if it actually is 15 minutes. But I think it might be, because it seems like it's a long-ass scene.
It is. I didn't time it, but I read several things that said it is actually 15 minutes from the moment it says 15 minutes till whatever. You can get the fuck out of here or whatever.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I like her scene with the queen alien. I think it's like,
oh my God,
really interesting. I like when it shows up and it's just like the reveal of it, like, because you know, you haven't seen anything like that before in size and grossness. The giant fucking egg laying tube was disgusting.
Awful. Again with the goo. I liked that scene too. This again, just so much tension is built in that egg room, in her little nesting room.
And they have like, they almost have a conversation between them without words, but like basically it's clear, like, so the other aliens kind of start circling in. Okay, by the way, I think this movie, the aliens are dudes in suits. It was like that in the first movie. They found a guy who's like really tall and skinny to embody the alien.
Okay.
But I think in both movies, for the most part, they do a good job of hiding, only showing just enough that you don't get the impression that it's a dude in the suit. When the aliens show up in the scene, they kind of like walk in and they're like, they're like seeing what's going on. But then what happens is she's got the flamethrower and the queen is right there, and kind of like they all sort of communicate that like she's just going to back out of here slowly and she won't fucking blow up their whole thing. So the alien guys in suits, they kind of do like the Homer Simpson gif where he like walks backwards into the bush. That was the one part where I'm like, that looks like a guy in a suit, and it's really fucking funny.
I didn't know they were in suits. I was going to ask, like, are these puppets? What are these animatronics? They look amazing, so that makes sense that they're in suits.
I think it's a bit of both. Like, I think they used whatever made sense for the scene, but that's one of the few shots where you kind of like see a whole alien moving around. Whereas like when you get a face close up and it's like the jaws doing stuff like that, that's a puppet for sure.
Right. So I'm glad you explained what the fuck was happening at the end, because I was wondering if that's what was happening, but I was also like, wait, do they not know if she's there? Can maybe they not see, and for some reason they can't smell her amidst all the egg goo? Is her scent masked?
What do you think that room confused. Smells like?
I don't. Like a room. No.
The goo kind of looks like icing sugar, to be honest. It sort of makes me think of like a glazed donut. So maybe it's just really sugary.
I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah, but basically, like what I think was happening there was like that is the queen bee, as Hudson pointed out earlier, and she's like a total badass. But like they know that she is there with the flamethrower, and she's like, I can destroy your whole thing right now.
Yeah,
and the queen is just like looking pissed off, and then she kind of like starts backing off slowly. And this is one of my favorite moments in the movie is like as she's backing off, she's just like slowly going away. One of the eggs just like opens up, and she just gets like Ripley just has this look on her face like, you fucker. And then she's just like, fuck it. And she starts torching everything. So good. I love that.
Yeah, it's an interesting moment between mothers. Which would have been more interesting if the fact that Ripley's daughter had died. I'm like, did I fucking miss that? I'm going to have to go after we're finished this and watch that scene again and see. I wasn't eating. Actually, I was eating. I did have my dinner when I was watching this. Did I look at my plate too long? I don't think I did. Anyway, I'm glad I know what the fuck was going on, because I wasn't sure. I was like, are they aware of what's happening, or is this like she's in their blind spot and she's just gonna peace out, which of course doesn't make sense because of the dudes that are her little soldiers who are coming in to assess the situation.
It's a standoff situation. They all got their guns pointed at each other, and they're like, all right.
It just seemed like Mama Alien was so big and strong. Like she could have just like, pew, just like stuck one of those sharp ass things coming out of her right through Ripley, and that's the end.
I don't know. There was some distance
there. Maybe the word of Ripley has reached Mama, and she is like, oh, this is the Ripley.
Yeah, the legend of Ripley.
The legend of Ripley.
All the people that are cocooned screaming for their lives were telling them.
57 years they've been talking about Ripley, and here she is in the flesh.
Yeah, I mean, it is the same planet from the first movie. So she torches everything. The queen is like, fuck it, and she just goes blah and like rips off her depositor thing and starts chasing Ripley. There is a funny moment where you see the queen, like Ripley gets on the elevator, and then the other elevator opens, and then they show a shot of the queen, and I swear she's like, oh, like elevator. That was a little ridiculous. The queen is like maybe a little too smart in this remaining chunk of the movie, because she's pretty crafty. Although this almost like the way this movie ends is very similar to the end of the first movie. Like it's almost a remake in that sense.
Girl power.
Yeah, so they take off out of there, and the planet blows up behind them. And then they're like, sweet, we made it. And Ripley's like, Bishop, I'm sorry I was robot racist to you.
Yeah, and the moment they leave, I actually thought, oh my God, I can relax for a second. And they have the little shot of the spaceship flying. It was a very Falcor-ish. We had a couple shots of it going through the clouds and things. And I was like, oh, We're safe.
And they could have ended it there. You could have ended the movie here if you wanted to.
Yeah. But he was like, more.
But they did not. So the queen rips Bishop in half, and we immediately get very sad.
Oh, yeah.
And then...
what did he ask her? I did good.
Yeah, you did good, Bishop.
I want to marry Bishop and move to the woods with him and just have him like cut wood for me and gather eggs from the chickens. Actually, I don't know if I'm going to be able to eat many eggs after this movie for a while, but anyway. Yeah, this was an interesting scene because this is a callback to something earlier. And I feel like this final showdown should have been really badass, really intense. But it was funny. It was kind of ridiculous for me. That lift seems very cumbersome. And I get why she's in it. But it just looks... I don't know. It looks cumbersome.
It does. I think it does convincingly come across as like, this is a piece of equipment and it is slow and cumbersome, but it's like, it's kind of all she's got. I mean, honestly, realistically, I think I would not feel super confident in that suit with like how slow it moves. I feel like the alien actually wins that fight in real life, but fuck it, whatever.
Yeah. I was giggling a little bit watching it. Would they also get away from her, you bitch?
Yeah.
That line. So iconic.
Great delivery.
Yeah. She really sells this. Like, I can't imagine how distressed she must have felt like every day on set, just in panic mode, just covered in sweat and spray and, oh God. She really does a great job in this. She commits fully. She makes me believe that she can get it done in the Transformer outfit. But
yeah, so that's basically it. She kills the queen by punting it out the airlock, and then
Bishop saves Newt's life.
Yeah, she almost gets sucked out. Okay, I feel like an airlock also... The airlocks in the Alien franchise, I think, are kind of generous in terms of like how bad they would actually fuck you up versus what they show.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed that Ripley could pull herself out of one over the edge and shut it.
Yeah.
With barely anything but just like a little mess of the hair. Her hair also seemed to get shorter as this movie went on, which was a bit confusing. Maybe it was just that it was wet by the end and just more matted to her head. Anyway, just an observation.
That's interesting. Yeah, so that's basically it. They go to sleep, and then we're off to Alien 3 in, I don't know, another decade, and that's when just things start going south for the franchise.
How many Alien movies are there? 5?
So there's Alien 3. I can't remember if it's called Alien 4, but there's like an Alien 4. Then I think there was nothing for a while. And then, I think Alien 4 is called Insurrection. Then like a big chunk of time went by, and then Prometheus came out, which is like kind of a prequel as dog shit.
Oh.
And then there's
is
another...
That Michael Fassbender?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's okay. I like him.
He's a great actor.
Fucking poorly written movie. Yeah. I think Ridley Scott might have done Prometheus too.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there was another Alien Covenant, which I don't even know where that one fits in the franchise.
What was Alien versus Predator?
Okay. So the Alien movies...
That totally outside of the Alien franchise?
Yeah, I don't think it's considered canon. So the Alien movies were successful, and I guess so were the Predator movies. And at some point, a comic book series in the 90s came out. And comic books were like, you could kind of do like weird spin-offs in comics, and, you know, nobody really stressed over whether it was official or not to the like story, I guess. I don't know how the comic books are, though. I don't think necessarily that movie was based on the comics. But yeah, they made the movie Alien versus Predator, which I did see. And was kind of interesting. Like, basically, the plot of that movie is, I think some people end up on a planet, and there's a bunch of aliens on it, and they quickly discover that what the Predator aliens do is, like, they go through a ritual where you have to go fight and kill a bunch of aliens. Like they breed them to be hunted by the predators as like a rite of passage. Which I was actually like, that's kind of cool.
I think I saw that movie. I think someone I knew was like, and I don't know who, but someone I knew wanted to see it. And so we saw it. Did that come out when we were like in high school or maybe just after?
Yeah, I think it was like early 2000s.
Okay. I think that someone convinced me to go and I was like, I don't think I've seen an alien movie or maybe I've only seen one. And they were like, let's go. I don't remember enjoying it.
I don't think it was a banger.
Yeah. You know who might have is one of my ex-boyfriends, because I remember him I shouldn't say forcing me to watch the Predator movies, but it was not my top pick. But I remember watching those and the Terminator movies.
Oh, yeah.
And those aren't really my jam. But
I would say of the rest of the franchise, they're all, you can write them off completely, except for Alien 3. I think Alien 3 is a big disappointment in a lot of ways. Let me just spoil the beginning of Alien 3. Hey, this movie ends. Ripley and Hicks and Newt and Bishop fly off to whatever. Let's start Alien 3 and let's immediately kill off Newt and Hicks. They die when Ripley crashes her plane on another planet. So it's just Ripley. It's Ripley on a space prison planet where it's all guys who are like rapists and murderers. So they all like live on this planet and they all have shaved heads. And that's why she shaves her head in the movie, which was like kind of cool. Like it's interesting because it's David Fincher's first movie, and
okay,
yeah. So it has like the parts of it I think that are kind of like redeeming or interesting is that like it looks like a David Fincher movie, so it looks really cool. And Charles Dance, I believe I'm getting that name right, who is Grandpa Lannister on Game of Thrones, the oldest Lannister. He's in it, so he's good. But otherwise, it's just kind of whatever.
Sorry, is Bishop also dead?
Bishop has a brief cameo in the movie because like he's a robot, so he's kind of like out of commission. But there's a scene where she like plugs him in to like. Oh yeah, okay. Well, I don't want to spoil all of Alien 3.
Don't spoil it. You know what? I enjoyed this one enough that I will probably go watch. At least, I'm sure I've seen the first one at some point. I'll probably rewatch that one, and I might watch the third. And if I probably will watch Prometheus, just because I remember when it came out, it was there was a lot of talk about it, and people were like, "Oh man, it sucks." But now I'm curious.
Last week, you and I were having a conversation about what is the most disappointing movie experience that you've had, like expectations versus reality. And I forgot to mention it in the intro, but Prometheus was one of the worst. Like I was like so psyched about that movie because I'm like, oh fuck, it's like kind of a prequel to Alien, I guess. It just doesn't make sense. The plot is completely gobbledygook. There's a bunch of like big name actors in it, but like there's just funny moments of like bad writing, I guess. I watched a clip of Alien Covenant, which I haven't seen, but I was just like on YouTube. And so one thing I really appreciate about this movie being from the 80s is it's from the pre-CGI era. So you had constraints on what you could do, which means you build your puppet as best you can and you fucking keep it in the dark so that people don't realize it's a guy in a suit, you know? Whereas a scene from this Alien Covenant movie, I don't know the context or what was going on in the movie, but it's Danny McBride flying a fucking future space airplane over a planet, and then there's like the alien is like on the roof like crawling around, and it's like bad CGI. It looks ridiculous. It's moving too fast. I'm just like, this is when franchises go too far. You need to just put this away, put this back on the shelf.
This is interesting because like James Cameron is such like a CGI freak now. So just knowing that like he's come from Aliens, which looks amazing. Like the effects, even everything looks so clean in this movie. Like the shots look so clean. The design looks, I mean, it just looks really good. It's just interesting to see him move. He's kind of more of a technical director, I think, than anything else, but he always does pull off a good story, I guess. I've not seen Avatar, so I don't know what his situation with that is. I heard that was a bummer, but yeah.
Something that occurred to me watching this movie was I was thinking about the insane length of it, and my takeaway at the end was like, personally, I'm okay with this movie being that long, just because I think it does everything well enough, but also like because the characters are so good, I kind of just like that it's this long, fucking grindy, horrible experience they're in, and anytime they're on screen, I'm kind of like just happy to watch them. Mm-hmm. Now, James Cameron made Terminator 2. Well, he made the first Terminator as well, but Terminator 2, right. I've seen that movie a million times as well. And at one point, I ended up watching the extended edition, which I didn't know existed for that movie, and it makes it really long. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is way too long, and it's fucking boring. Yeah. And I think like I won't say Terminator 2 doesn't have characters or that the characters like don't have heart. I think like there is a lot there in that sense, but I think like Aliens really does just kind of like eclipse that movie in terms of like what I think it's doing in terms of characters and writing and relationships and stuff like that. I think Terminator kind of does that, but it's not, I don't know, I don't find it quite as interesting.
I barely remember Terminator. I think I mostly fell asleep when I was watching those movies. They were on a lot for like 3 years of my life.
Okay, one quick question also about this whole like special edition thing. Did you get a scene early in the movie where Ripley's family, or sorry, not Ripley, Newt's family is driving their space truck on the space planet? Okay, fuck. See, this is... Nope. So one of the opening scenes in the movie is Newt and her brother and her parents, you see the whole family are in like a truck driving on that planet in the scary fucking wilderness of whatever is going on there. It's like dark and rainy and windy and, you know, it's always miserable there. And the parents go in to the spaceship that was seen in the first movie. They basically go to the place in the first movie where they found the eggs. And you get the scene where the parents go in and then the kids are like waiting in the car. And then all of a sudden, like the parents come back and the mom opens the door and it's like howling wind. And the mom is like on the radio calling for help. And then you see dad basically laying on the ground with the thing on his face. No. And Newt just goes, yeah, delivers another fucking fantastic, Newt scream. So like, it's a horrifying scene. That like, you actually see the family that she's talking about in the movie. Like there's faces, to those people and they're dead. And that's,
did not see that.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Because like later in the movie, you find out that Paul Reiser is the one who sent them to that place. Like there's actually a little conversation before they go out about like, yeah, we got an order to go check out this and they want to know something. But what I also like about that detail, one of the things I really like about this movie and the first movie is the conflict or just like the interests of the corporation as a driving force for things that happen and seeing the distinction between the company man and the corporation and the workers. And in the case of Newt's parents, like they're colonists. So like they're people who go to this planet to like, there's a big thing about like discovery rights. Like they're going to that spaceship because if they find something, some kind of resource or something like that, they'll actually get money for it. Like it's almost like a gold claim or something. So the thing that kind of kicks this off as well is like just these sort of like, I assume people who go to colonize these planets that are like desolate and miserable are not wealthy people. Like these are people that are like doing this risky work to try and like make their lives better. So the distinction between the regular people and this big corporation and Paul Reiser and all that stuff, that scene I think actually helps give that a bit more weight. So I'm furious that it wasn't in the one you saw.
You know what? It's interesting that you say that though. Like your last two suggestions for movies we watch have been Blade Runner and Aliens, and I've said many times before, I'm really not a sci-fi fan, or it's not that I hate it, it's just the action part of it doesn't interest me, so I've tended to stay away. Even I'm a big reader, or I used to be, and I would tend to stay away from sci-fi only because I had this idea about what it was or who it was for. But the more I'm watching and the more we're having conversations about it is just how much science fiction is able to pull the real issues that exist today and put it into the future and say, oh, I'm not talking about you, but like, say this happens. And it's a really safe sort of environment and safe space to have these discussions and to make this commentary on societal issues. So I have to say, these past couple of weeks that we have watched movies that are not movies I would have picked up on my own, I'm starting to garner an appreciation for science fiction. Maybe not all, but like well done science fiction. And I may even dabble in some sci-fi fiction literature.
I might try this out on my own. That makes me so happy. I feel like we've had a breakthrough here. But that is a thing people say about sci-fi, is that like, yeah, kind of like, because you can, maybe set up like, because there's different parts of sci-fi. Like one kind of sci-fi I would call is like, I would call it like pure aesthetics. And I would put the original 3 Star Wars movies in that category, in that I think those movies have almost kind of nothing to say about society or politics or anything like that. It's basically just like generic good versus evil, in a way that I think, it works for what Star Wars is. I like that. It's just like the Empire, they're bad guys because they look like they're bad guys. They look like space Nazis. I guess they blow up planets. That's a real bad thing to do. But like that's kind of it. Whereas so what you do get from that, what really sells a movie like Star Wars is the aesthetics. Like everything fucking looks cool and it sounds cool. The sound effects are great, just like the whole aesthetic of it is just like, I just want to absorb it and take it in. But other kinds of sci-fi can give you those kind of details too, about like what is this world exactly? Like, yeah, the technology is different, it looks different, and there's neon and blah, blah, blah. But like, how has society changed in this world? Or what's different about society? Or what's the same about our society? This movie, I think, kind of gives us a bit of that, of like, what is the difference between the corporation and like the regular working person, or just like the externalities of their decision. Like Paul Reiser was trying to sneak that alien back home so that they would have it. He says our bioweapons division could really, they'd get a kick out of this. So, so you can kind of follow that line of thought. And Blade Runner also is, a little bit, maybe not quite as much, but actually, no, yeah, it very much is about like, these are the workers of the future. We've completely turned them into like robot slaves.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the kind of sci-fi. Or you get something like Starship Troopers, which is arguably like right in the middle.
I don't remember that movie. I know I've seen it.
We'll get to that someday.
Next week, we're watching Starship Troopers. Yeah. We won't be watching that, but one day we'll get to it.
Well, I think I've gotten all my thoughts out about this movie. I had a big list of things written down that I wanted to talk about. I'm sure I missed a bunch of them, but I think I got the main points home. So yeah, for me, in summary, I fucking love this movie. It's great. Pinnacle of 80s action. Great characters. Great performances. Don't watch the rest of them.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. I was pleasantly surprised. I really wasn't entirely sure what to expect, but it held my attention. Drags a little bit. It is a little too long. Next time I watch this, I'll definitely watch the extended cut, see those scenes that I missed. But I recommend this. If you're like me and haven't seen Aliens, or if you have and it's been a while, I definitely say watch it again. I give this, like, for a science fiction action military style movie, I give this like a 9 gooey eggs out of 10.
High praise.
Yeah.
I would give this 9.5 milk torsos out of 10.
Bishop.
We love you, Bishop. Get well soon. Well, that's going to be it for this week's episode of Ex Post Watcho. Thank you, everybody who took the time to listen to our show. We appreciate it. We would love if you would get in contact with us. If there's a movie you think we should watch, or one of us has said something that you think is terrible and you want to yell at us for it, you can email us at expostwatcho@gmail.com. We're on all the podcast platforms. If whatever one you're using, if you took the time to give us a review, that would be real neat. We'd appreciate it. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram, both at expostwatcho. And that's it for this week. Next week, Ilana will be punishing me by making me watch Little Women. No, I don't believe it's punishment.
It's almost 2 hours long.
Okay. All right. Goodbye, everybody.